Townsend. What a great kick. Oh, and Chad Townsend plays on. Plays to the whistle. Kicks away for Valentine Holmes. Cronulla's in again. Wow. Chad Townsend, brilliant.
Yo, let's go. We're back. Another episode of the Chad Townsend Show. And today it gives me great pleasure to introduce a great friend of mine, host of the Sweet and Sour podcast, Jamie Soward. Thanks for coming on the show, my brother.
Chad Townsend, thanks for having me, mate. It's been a while. The studio's changed. I love how you've done your intro, though, because next year those same highlights can be played. Just put North Queensland Cowboys in there. So very smart from you.
Yeah, well, it's good. It's good to have my I guess Valentine Holmes. You know, got a bit of history there. But mate, how have you been, mate? In the middle of the NRL season, I know you're a very busy man. Got two beautiful girls, a lovely family, but keeping yourself busy at the moment.
Yeah, mate, very busy. I think that this time of year, not being a player, it's hard because you're trying to manage everything with Origin and stuff like that. But, very busy at the moment. Loving watching the game. I think we'll delve in a little bit later. It's probably not the game that we grew up watching and probably wanting to play. But at the moment right now, it's a very busy time of the year.
Talk to me about the podcast, mate. Sweet and Sour podcast.
Yeah.
I've got a bit of a good crew there. I've listened to quite a few episodes and love the banter as well with the boys. How's that going?
Yeah, great, mate. It's our second year in. We've got we're lucky to have some great sponsors as we do for Moving the Chains with Top Sport and having Tristan on. So it started off as a podcast that was, and this is the podcast business is, it started off how you vision it with American sport and NRL and AFL. And now it's turned into 60% NRL, 1% AFL, banter, and then a bit of punting at the end. So we're loving it. If you're Nick Davis, if you want to listen to it, Sweet and Sour, we get some good numbers there, and we're having a lot of fun.
Yeah, nice. Well, guys, it is State of Origin time, and I have hit up Sowie, obviously a former Blue himself, to come on to the show today, talk about a bit of the Origin build-up. So, mate, it is the best time of the year. It's good to have Origin back middle of the year. What have you made, just firstly, before we get into it, about the two sides so far, the selections?
Yeah, I think Queensland... probably a little bit of loyalty in terms of Kurt Capewell in the centres off the back of what happened last year. I don't know if they'll have the same success out wide as what they did last year with New South Wales, picking two guys that have played there before and have had combinations there before. So, but the advantage that Queensland have is whoever wins game one is going to win the series, in my opinion. If Queensland are able to get game one, they're nearly unbeatable at Suncorp. And if New South Wales get it, it could be a sweep because the devastation of losing at home and then the pressure on, New South Wales could get the job done. So I think that New South Wales picked a team that our guys are in form. Combinations are important in Origin. They've got a bit of a bee in their bonnet. They lost the unlosable series last year, as many predicted. And you look at Queensland now and Munster and Delacheri Evans off the back of that series, that they'll never, ever be feared, again like that. So we'll never be taken lightly, I beg your pardon. So, it's probably the only interesting selection, I reckon, but they didn't really have too many options, was Kurt Capewell in the centres, although he's a fantastic player for Penrith.
Yep.
He plays the other side. It's a lot. I think he'll get a lot more decisions to make in Origin this year. They didn't really test him too much. And then Jake Trbojevic, I think, starts from the bench in for the Blues side. His ball playing is going to be critical. But, that's probably, I think, the rest is stock standard. There was no real surprise.
Yep. All right, we'll quickly go through the Queensland side. I mean, this is the side that's been named. Obviously, Kalen Ponga at fullback, but has since been ruled out through injury. Do you see Valentine Holmes going back at the fullback position?
I think he will. I was going to ask you a question. It's probably a bit hard, but Val... over the last 6 weeks, I've called a lot of his games, and I felt like the first 5 weeks, Todd Payton talked about his body fitness from the NFL and stuff like that. I didn't feel like he was as engaged as what I'd seen him at the Cronulla Sharks, and I call with Shane Flanagan on a Saturday night, so I've got the luxury of knowing the insights and behind of what Val's like at his best by a coach and now by a player. So, but the last 6 weeks he's grown into that role. He's supporting the ball a lot more, which is dangerous for New South Wales. So I expect him to slot back in there and get involved. You know, if he's involved, Valentine Holmes, I mean, he ran around me at Shark Park there in 2016 when you won the comp, which a lot of people did. But, that I hadn't seen that Val for a long time and since he'd come back, and he's on a big pay packet up there, so he has to deliver those plays, and they're great to watch. But I think, he'll go back to fullback. And New South Wales kicking game, I think can be an advantage with Val at the back, because he didn't have a great game at fullback last year and got moved to the wing. So, if anything, I think New South Wales, if they can get on the front foot, that might be an advantage for them. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I agree with you. I think probably in the way the Cowboys went, I guess their opening month they went winless, and since that time, they made the shift to Val to fullback, and I think their form's kind of turned around with Val's as well. I think over the last month he's been exceptional. So I definitely think he'll go back to fullback as well. Xavier Coates on the wing, as you mentioned, Kurt Capewell in the centres from that last year's performance, which was pretty freakish. Gay guy in there as well. Halves, Munster and Cherry Evans, front row Welsh and Big Tino, Harry Grant at hooker. Felice Kafusi getting off that charge. You thought he was going to get off? Oh, I didn't really care too much. Like,
me too.
You know what I mean? Like it's I tweeted out a couple of weeks ago, and I said, I think I stole it off Sean O'Sullivan. Origin, we want the best 34 players.
Yep.
You should have a separate charge sheet.
Yeah.
Going into that arena. If you're picked, pay a fine or pay a percentage of your fee that you get through that so you can play.
Definitely.
And same for finals.
Yep.
I don't think anyone should ever miss a grand final because of a carryover. And people say, well, you lose your license if you don't drive well for. And I say, but State of Origin and a grand final.
It's our biggest part of
We're living. I mean, yours is 5 years ago. Mine's 11 years ago. I'm still living off it. So you want to be in those moments. And for State of Origin and the amount of money it brings in, I don't want to see someone in game one get head high and have a bad rap sheet and miss for 4 weeks. So I was happy with Felice to play.
Yep, I agree with that one, mate. Jai Arrow locks the scrum, and then on the bench, Brimson, Jaden Sewer, and Mo Fotuaika, and then Joe Offahingawi. So a pretty strong.
He's a gun. Mo Fotuaika's a gun.
He's been super impressive for the Titans, I think.
I think he starts. I wouldn't be surprised if he started and Jai Arrow came off the bench because he's been in that role for South Sydney.
Yep.
But if New South Wales have an advantage, and sometimes you look at the benches first sometimes because you see how that shapes up. When Jake goes back to the bench, as we predict, and Payne starts, you feel like New South Wales have got a bit of an edge there. But Mo Fotuaika, man, he is a gun. He is a gun. Like he's going to be a 30 Origin player. That's how good he is.
Yeah, I agree. It's been super impressive at the Titans in the last 18 months. All right, we'll move on to the Blues team list. Tedesco at fullback, making his Origin debut. Brian To'o been in outstanding form. What have you made of his 2021 so far?
Yeah, I had Tupou. I just thought the matchup against Coates in terms of height and stuff like that, but Josh Adokar's played against tall guys. He'll know how to handle that. To'o will go to the right wing. Origin used to be about, you're still playing, but you had to have 18 months of good form before you got picked in Origin. And that's what we're seeing with these Penrith guys. Brian To'o's too good to be a fluke, if that makes sense. So the last 11 games, I think he's averaged 100 or 200 metres. So, he'll be good and important for New South Wales, starting your sets off your own line. It's like a finals atmosphere. You don't get too many opportunities. So he's going to have to be good going in there and being busy. And then you have Josh Adokar, whose involvement is going to be crucial. Defensively on that edge, he's going to have to help Latrell. Because they like attacking down there. Gagai turns into Greg Inglis when he plays for Queensland. So they're going to have to be good there. And that combination of Fox, Latrell, Luai on that edge, and then a new back rower and Tarek Sims, you got 4 guys from a different club. So Latrell and the Fox are going to have to dictate how that edge defends.
In the centres, we've got Latrell Mitchell and Tom Travoy, which meant 2 fullbacks named in the centres. Is that a concern for you, or you just think that these guys are just too good of footy players?
Yeah, I didn't have a concern last year. I know people say Gutherson and Whiten got a bath, and they did. But, it's those guys just had an off night, off series, and we've all played bad games. So, Latrell's was the world's best centre at one stage. I reckon if Latrell's involvement in the first 10 minutes is busy, he could blow the game and series wide open.
Yep.
Like if he's, I was going to say it's not interested, but if he's on and he's involved early with a couple of big carries, he's like Greg Inglis for us.
Yeah, you kind of need to get him like where he's like he's a bit. You can see with his facials, you see when he's into the game. And I think you're right. Get him in early.
Well, you have those guys.
Yeah.
We've all played with those guys. Like Jamal Idris for me, if I went out and Jammer was like not looking at me, I was like, man, I'm going to have to go over and say something to Jammer and say and start the engine, So, but yeah, those guys, I think Latrell is in great form for South Sydney and has been for a while. And I think he's looking at redemption. He's looking at making
He's
a
playing
statement.
with a chip on his shoulder.
And I think sometimes as a player, a young player who's won 2 comps, played for Australia, played for New South Wales, won a series. I wouldn't say the drive wasn't there, but he had a lot of stuff going on off field with racism and all that kind of stuff. I've never seen him so focused, and he could blow the series open for New South Wales.
Yeah, I think he's really found a home at South. So I think he'll probably play. I can see him playing the rest of his career at South. It's his home.
Well, he's a proud Indigenous man, and he loves Josh Adokar, and that could be the old Mark Gasnier, Matt King combination. Those guys out there. So it'd be interesting to see. As
you mentioned, Foxy on the wing, and then in the halves, making his Origin debut, Jerome Luai, partners Nathan Cleary. Mate, what have you made of these two? Is it the right call to go with the club combination for the halves?
100%. I don't think you could have taken Jack Whiten in and placed all the pressure on Jack when he hasn't been playing well, and he would be put his hand up first to say he hasn't been playing well. And there was a bit of conjecture about you need a big body and all this kind of stuff. Well, what Jerome Luai does is the way the game's played at the moment, runs the ball, controls an edge, and can kick as well in good ball. And he can do that better than Jack can at the moment. So, and the pyramid of Luai, Cleary and Yeo for New South Wales is critical. If they can get their timing right and when they get the 3 or 4 chances, because they're not going to have 12 chances like they do for Penrith every single week to nail it, and they've been doing that. They're going to have 3 chances. And if they can nail those 3 chances, then it goes a long way to winning the game. So if Luai was ever going to get picked, it was always going to be at 6, and it was going to be now. It wasn't going to be, they've seen what they need to see. And as a 5'8", I remember I played 2 years, 09-10 were my best years. I didn't get picked till 2011 because I needed to see it done in the finals. And he's done that. So, again, a bit like the Totos, too good to be a fluke.
Yep. I rate that too, and I agree. I think it's the right call to go with these guys. I think.
Well, you've played against it. What's Luai to play against? What's he like to not only to preview but to play against? Because previewing's different.
Yeah, you just mentioned it. The triple threat. I think the run, pass, and kick, mate. The kid's got it all, and he's shown it over the last 18 months. He's try involvements, he's try assists. He's got a lethal combination with. Big kick here.
Yeah.
And the way he, I guess, runs that left edge at the Panthers is they're probably one of the most lethal edges in the competition. You know that Cleary will run the centre of the park, get his hands on the ball a lot. But I think the thing that I'm really excited to see if New South Wales translate this into their on-field play is if I'm looking at the Panthers team, Isaiah Yeo, Nathan Cleary, Jerome Luai touch the ball the most for the Panthers. And then you've got Appy as well in the middle. Now, all these guys are in the Origin team, so they're obviously going to all feel really comfortable. So does that translate into the Origin arena? As you just mentioned, a lot more pressure, higher stakes, lesser opportunities against quality players. So that's one thing that I'm really interested to see. But I think they can do it. I think Nathan Cleary's been the most dominant player in the NRL for a number of years this year. I think his performances.
And if he's going to dominate Origin, that's the only thing to conquer, right? And then Australia when he eventually takes DCE's spot, or if he hasn't already, he's got to dominate an Origin series. And he can do that now. He's got
definitely. It's
not like he doesn't know what Luai's doing. He knows when Yo's going to give him the ball.
He's a few years into his Origin career now. He's settled.
He debuted in 2016. He's been in the comp for 6 years. He's only 15, but he's been in the comp for 6 years. So.
All right, we'll move on. Daniel Saifiti and Jake Trbojevic are in the front row. Damien Cook in at 9. Now, there's a bit of conjecture about this selection or position, whether it was going to be Cook or Api Coruscant. Cook got the nod. Agree? Do you think it's the right call?
I think out of loyalty that he got a shot. Cookie's again hasn't had the best season this year and been a little bit up and down. But he's timing of when to run and pass is going to be crucial for New South Wales. If he can do that right, then and help roll the forwards, and I think sometimes he's gotten away from that at Souths, and they've been leaking points as well, which doesn't help the confidence. So I really like Apisai Coruscant. I think that he's a combination again, and you have the 4 guys there, and he's 18th man. So if we see the crackdown happen, you may see Appy come in and play the 18th man role. You may see both of them on the field at once. So I am a huge Appy fan. I think that if Cook doesn't play well in game 1, and I love Cookie, I see him all the time, and hopefully he doesn't take it the wrong way, but I think that if he doesn't do the Damien Cook things in game 1, then Appy Coruscant might be in for game 2.
Yeah, I think I agree with you in the fact that I think Cookie deserved his spot on the fact of what he's done previously in the blue jersey. I think the way him and Tedesco linked up in previous series was phenomenal to watch. The way they both ran, created space around the ruck, running game. But as you mentioned, I'm a huge fan of Uppy as well. I think he's made for Origin. He's only a little body. He's a great defender. Runs the ball very well. His ball playing's phenomenal. So, that'll play out in due course.
His decision making,
his
I think
selection.
Cookie's so fast that sometimes the decision's made for him
because he's going so fast.
And I found that sometimes
as a ball player,
the tempo
exactly.
I found 100%. It like you're a lot slower than me, so you have no problem with it. Your tempo's fine, but I found at times like trying to get to the line and get to that person and manipulate them is really, really hard. But Coruscant has that patience and flow into his game.
Yep, for sure. Cam Murray and Tarek Sims in the back row. I mean, interesting to see Cam Murray find himself on an edge. What are your thoughts on that?
I picked it. We're short on back rows at the moment. We've had Cordner and Frizzell for stable players for a couple of years. They're not there through injury and stuff like that. So Cam will do a job on an edge, and he could help unlock Damien Cook with the quick play the ball, and Cookie look short side, come back open, and then be allowed to go shift to the other side of the field. Tarek Sims, I was really happy for Taz. I know that he, people say, "Oh, how'd you pick Tarek?" Well, in Origin, you need different guys. Cam Murray's going to get you play the ball, make 50 tackles. Tarek Sims is going to rip someone's head off.
Yep.
Illegally, of course. But
and compete.
And, he's had 2 charge downs this year.
Yeah.
He's kicked pressure on for 2 tries, so he's earned his spot, Taz. I think that he can empty the tank, and then you can look to move that around a little bit, whether Murray goes to that edge, and you put someone, Liam Martin on. Those Liam Martin and Tarek are there. Like, Murray's going to play 80 minutes. Liam and Tarek are going to get 40 each probably.
Yep.
Like, that's how it's going to go.
Yep, beauty. All right, the interchange bench, as we spoke about before, Jack Whiten in at 14, Junior Paulo 15. Payne Haas 16, but predicted to start, and Liam Martin makes his debut as well, mate. What have you made of Liam Martin's season so far?
Country boy.
Goes
Rock
hard.
solid, mate.
Goes hard,
I don't
mate.
know what he's like to play against a tackle, but I don't want any part of that. And well deserved. Again, one of those guys. You're a product of your environment, and when you're successful as a team, you get more players in. So, he'll be chomping at the bit. Like, you look at players, and I mean, I don't think too many people would have said that Jamie Soward looks like he's made for Origin. But you look at Liam Martin and you go, mate, he's made for Origin.
How many Origins did Jamie Soward play?
3.
3. Well, there you go.
Just. I didn't get the call back the next year. Unbelievable. We lost 2-1. It's pretty good.
All right, mate. Well, let's move into Paul Green. First time coaching at Origin level for the Maroons. Played for the Maroons in the past. What have you made of, I guess, the Maroons selection of Paul Green, and what do you think he brings to the Maroons?
Yeah, I haven't had much to do with Paul, but one thing I've looked at New South Wales, and Freddie's done it well as well, is they've got, I wouldn't say managers because they're smart coaches, obviously, but they've got people around them, right people around them. JT's in there, Billy's in there.
Because at that level, it's not really about...
Mate, Mel did it for 11 years. He's not X's and O's.
You got the best of the best.
Well, Cameron Smith, he's just come in. Mal's just come in saying, Cam, what do you want to do this week?
Yeah.
So they've had that luxury, but I feel like, Paul's first week, he'll have to... The sort of decision, or the hardest thing he had to do, was unlock Kalen Ponga and how he was going to get himself into the game. Hasn't played a lot of footy this year. And he's got a couple of guys like that. Harry Grant, how does he manage him through the week? Can he get 80 minutes out now? They've released Reid Marnie.
Yep.
Does Ben Hunt get a late call up? So, yeah, there's some decisions there for him to make on their style as well. But, yeah, he's got the right cattle around him. And, yeah, I think coming off the back of last year, I wouldn't say he's got a free shot at it, but no one expected him to win last year.
Yeah.
Like New South Wales have been going for 4 in a row.
Yeah.
They've got a free shot at, he's got a free shot at, and he's going to get 2 years.
Yeah, he's got a bit of time to build.
Yeah, to build his next crop coming through, I think.
Yep, agree with you there. What do you think New South Wales need to do differently to last year on the back of their loss?
Ooh.
Because
I felt like fatigue crept in at the back of last year. Could you have played an Origin series after last year?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. Like last year, the bubble.
Your bubble.
Mentally.
And it was a race for 17 weeks.
Yeah,
because
it was. Yeah. No stoppages.
No buys, no stoppages, no...
And I think the fact that the guys who went straight into Origin, seeing all the other boys just be, able to live freely, have a beer, hang out with family and friends, go play golf, go surfing, do all those sorts of things. And these Origin guys were just in a bubble again for like an extra month. I think that probably got to them.
And thank God it never happened to me. I don't know what losing a grand final would do to me if I had to go into Origin 2 weeks later.
Yeah, how do you get after that?
Mentally draining. Nathan Cleary's month last year, losing the Dally M, losing the Origin, the grand final, and then Origin is, I think this year he looks a lot more refreshed. I think that'll help New South Wales. But in terms of gameplay, game 2, they set the tone with their kicking game, and I think that if they get that right and the game right now, the way it's played, and I'm telling someone that's playing, but which sounds weird, but from when I watch it is like it's so much about momentum and game management now, more 100%. Than ever. It's more than ever like the NFL right now because, one play and you might not see the ball for 10 minutes.
Yep.
And that's like Patrick Mahomes giving him the ball and he drives up the field for 10 minutes and you're sitting on the sideline or you're defending now and going, well, how do we get this back?
It's possession, field position.
Yeah, possession, field position. And the clubs that do it really well and manage that score lots of points and are up the top.
Yep.
The clubs that don't do that are up and down, which is probably 2/3 of the competition. So, New South Wales kicking game, momentum, being patient enough to take their chances. Luai and Cleary running the ball. I think Nathan's running game this year is better than last year. If he had anything to improve, I think he scored more tries running the ball this year.
Yep.
Rather than backing up or whatever. Yep. I think that's the key.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, before we move on from Origin, mate, I want to get a prediction, game 1 prediction, and then a series prediction, winner and scoreline in the first game.
I will give my pod a little bit of a wrap here. We're doing a Monday special with Tristan.
Yep.
So we do all the top sport, first try scorer, last try scorer, all that kind of stuff. So I won't say the score. I get plenty of picks, so it doesn't really matter. I do like 40 articles, so I get plenty of picks. I think it's a high-scoring game, like in terms of Origin, 20-16 maybe, 23-16, something along that.
Yep.
New South Wales 3-0. I say it every year. Hopefully it comes true while I'm alive.
Just before we move on completely from Origin, game 1 been moved from Melbourne to Townsville.
Joke.
What do you think? And before you answer,
you've got to be careful because this is your new home ground, so you can't slag it off.
I don't understand why everyone's just like, so it had to be Queensland or New South Wales, right? A few years ago, before we used to take games to a neutral ground, there'd be 1 year where it was in 2 in New South Wales, 1 year where it was in 2 in Queensland. Unfortunately, for us as New South Welshmen, the penny didn't drop with us this year. It's gone to Townsville. But like it had to go somewhere. So there's so many New South Wales people just like kicking stones saying, oh, you've got 2 games, blah, blah, blah.
But it's the first 2 games. It's not the 2 games. If it was games 1 and 3, it's games 1 and 2, mate. This is the unlosable series for Queensland.
Well, I apologise. I actually didn't know that. I should have done my research.
Mate, it is North Queensland, and then if they win that, they go, hey, boys, see you in a couple of weeks to wrap the series up with Suncorp. Like, it's a joke.
All right. Well, now I apologise. I'm backpedal. I do understand.
Yeah. I've never been a fan of the whole neutral venue.
Yeah.
Because people in Adelaide, all right, they know the Crows and they know Port Adelaide. That's it. And they don't even know who Adelaide United is. They don't know who the Adelaide 36ers are. They don't even know who the South Australian cricket team is, all right? They know the two teams of Port Adelaide and Adelaide Crows. We took an origin there.
Yeah.
I'm a traditionalist. I know.
You know what it is? It's all money, baby. It's
all
money.
the money.
It's that corporate dollar, baby.
It's all about the Chad Townsends, we call them. Yeah, I just think that's why I said whoever wins game one wins a series because New South Wales record at Suncorp, I think,
not very good.
Not very good at all.
All right, well, let's move on to the mid-season rule changes, mate. Just quickly, a few weeks ago, Magic Round, obviously the ARL Commission had a proceed where they decided to crack down on head-high tackles and really come down heavily on those punished, which in turn saw 30 guys in 2 weeks get put on report. Probably one of the biggest rule changes we've had over the last few years, as well as the 6 again. What have you made of the introduction of the rule? Do you think it's good for the game?
I support the rule change, and you'll know in retirement that you've been playing NRL for 15 years or whatever whenever you finish. So I think 10 years. You put up your photo the other day. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, mate.
It's a milestone. But I support the rule change. But once I supported it, I jumped forward to the next phase, which is there's rugby league plays and there's non-rugby league plays. And if you're running at me and I go to brace for contact and you trip and fall into my shoulder, that is a rugby league play. That is not 10 in the bin. That is not game-changing. That's not worth 18 points.
Yep.
That's worth 5 minutes. Because a team, you get 2 sets or 3 sets, you get an advantage, but the contest still stays within the contest. Unfortunately for the Sharks a couple of weeks ago, and I love Dukes, but when you cock your arm and you come over the top and swing your arm, that's not a rugby league play. Mm-hmm. So that needs to be 10 in the bin or send off whenever the bunker intervene. The crackdown was so magnified because it happened so quickly. The game was going great. It was faster, than ever.
Yep.
But it happened so quickly, and it needed to happen because we want to protect our players for now and in the future. But I just feel like we just went 0 to 100, and there was no. And then now we've gone back to 50. We're saying, okay, that was a head high, that was a rugby league play. If they had just said, look, guys, anything above the head is going to be scrutinised a lot more, then the players probably wouldn't have. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but the players would have gone, okay, no worries. Yep. And to be fair, the players need to get on board with this as well because it's not going away. And the game's done it to help protect you guys now and in retirement. So I can understand the frustration as when we're commentating, we're saying that's not a head high because we've watched it for a certain way for so long. But I feel like we're starting to get to a medium now, and the big test is Origin.
Yeah.
I don't want to see a game that's 11 on 11. I don't want to see... And no disrespect but I want to see the best 34 players for both teams or 36 players, whatever it is now. So I just felt like we went that far and we missed some of the steps along the way. And I feel like that's what the players felt as well.
Yeah, definitely agree with you. I think the fact, I support them as well. Definitely support the new rules. But in saying that, we play a contact sport. And as you just mentioned, the classic example of someone falling into a tackle where it's just... The contact has been, it hasn't been intentional, but there's been...
Well, the game against you guys against Dragons a couple of weeks ago, Paul Vaughan's gone in to make... Now, the player's been chopped. I think it was Will Chambers.
Yep.
And the player's been chopped down. Now, Paul's gone in to hit him around the chest and looked away and clipped him on the chin. Now, I understand that's head, but that's not direct and forceful. That is a common sense rugby league play. The other part of the rule changes is the bunker is only there to rule on that play.
Yeah. Don't stop the game.
Mate, we had 2 games on the weekend that went, one half went for an hour.
Yeah.
The game between the Roosters and Raiders that I called on the weekend went for an hour.
Yeah.
Because I looked at the clock, I'm like, usually we finish about 9:25 and we talk for half an hour. Mate, it was 20 to 10.
Yeah, right.
What are we doing? Why are we going back? We wanted the game to be faster. We want more fatigue in it. Yeah. But we go back 3 minutes to watch a play there. And the bunker needs to, if you're going for a try and the ref says, I want to rule on grounding, just rule on the grounding. We don't need to go back and watch whether old mate did that. Just simplify it.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be that complicated.
It's funny how you said that the game was slow, because I definitely agree with you. As a player, it definitely has. Even talking to a prominent referee in the game at the moment, I spoke to him last weekend. And I said, mate, how have you found it? What's your take on everything? And he said that basically they had a big Zoom meeting with the ARL Commission. They said that these are the rules we're going to enforce, showed them some clips about some examples of what would be punished, 10 in the bin, etc. But then he also said the game is completely it's slowed down a lot.
Yeah.
Now. With the rules were intentionally brought in to speed up the game. Now it's slowed down, and he said even he had data to show it.
Yeah.
His GPS data was like, I'm not moving as much, I'm not covering as much ground, because we're having to stop and send people to the bin and getting video reviews. So
and the players may hate this or not, but I said on my podcast last week, if you go down with a crusher, you need to leave the field.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, I can't be defending against you, Chad, and you want me to go down for a crusher, and then the physio comes on and goes, and then we wait and have a look, and then, oh, yeah, mate, he did a crusher.
Yeah.
Mate, go off then for 2 minutes or 5 minutes.
Yep.
Get it looked at. You're injured, obviously.
Yep.
Don't just go down for the penalty. The players need to help that.
Yeah.
If the players set the standard there, and when it's a head high, let the referee ref instead of looking for a penalty. And I get it. I've been there looking for an edge to win.
Yep.
But your footy will win anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
I would encourage the players to let that happen.
Yeah, beauty, mate. Agree with you. All right, we'll move on to the last bit of today's podcast, and that is the most in-demand free agents at the moment. Obviously, a lot of news happening around the player transfer market at the moment. Who are some of the biggest in-demand free agents that you can think of?
If I'm running the club right now,
if you're running the club, but it's hard because of what
I would love to get Aaron Woods.
Yeah, yeah.
I think rep guys never lose their talent. They just need a fresh lick of paint.
Yep.
And he's a guy that, when he came from the Bulldogs and Sharks, he was actually one of your best players.
Yeah, Australian representative.
Wales. And I just feel like he's still got something to offer.
Yep.
With a different mindset.
Yep.
And sometimes you'll see that when you go up to Todd, is you get and you're like, man, I've been in a rut for 2 years, you know, like
new challenge. Yeah.
Well, since you win the premiership,
Yep.
you get stuck in that. Okay, this is what we have to do to win a premiership. We need to do it that way.
Yep.
Then the paint wears off and the ring starts to get a little bit faded, and you're like, okay, we need to try something new. That's a little bit hard. That's why I left the Dragons, because I didn't want to change. I knew what we had to do to win. Why are we going away from that?
Yep.
A guy like Aaron Woods, I think, would be fantastic. Sean Johnson's an interesting one because he's so talented, but injuries, do you roll the dice there? If you can get anyone at the right price, I think that experience has never been more valuable in the NRL than what it is right now.
Yep.
And, bringing on young guys, some guys have, I'm not naming any clubs in particular, but they have some young guys that aren't quite there yet because they're trying to mirror what Penrith are doing. But Anthony Griffin started the Penrith youngsters 5 years ago.
Yep.
Like, Nathan Cleary's been playing for 6 years.
Yeah,
in my last game, he's first, in 2016. So everyone's like, oh, they got all these young guys. Hold on a second. Nathan Cleary's been in the comp for 5 years. Yeah. He's played in 4 Origin series, So Aaron Woods, Matt Duffy's an interesting one. He was fantastic last night.
Yeah, he was another one I wanted to bring up. Been in exceptional form.
I don't have anything to do with the table discussions at the Dragons.
Yep.
So, that disclaimer's put out there. But the thing I like about Matt is that, he's got that X factor, which is great. And he would be the first to admit he's still got to work on some things in his game defensively, putting himself in the right position. But the way that the game's played at the moment, I mean, he was sensational last night. So they're guys that I'd look at. But again, it's the fit. What have you got coming through?
Yeah, cap space.
Well, it's the old quarterback, rookie quarterback scale we talk about with the NFL. Like, I'll say it this way, like, how many teams in the NRL are one piece away from winning? Yeah. Melbourne, Penrith, maybe Parramatta. One piece away. If not, they've got in the kit bag.
Yep.
Everyone else is like 4 or 5 pieces away. And, you're one of those pieces in North Queensland. But you're still going to need some back rowers. You're going to need some depth there. You know what I mean? So it's like anything in world sport, like the Lakers, if you're not one piece away, then you're a long way away. So those experienced guys are going to be valuable.
Where do you think Dale Finucane ends up? Free agent at the moment, veteran free agent. Spent a lot of time, had a lot of success at Melbourne. Does he stay at Melbourne and finish his career, or does he get more of a lucrative offer from somewhere else?
Well, it depends where you want him to play. There's a little bit of talk around the Sharks, if you want him to play up front. But also the leadership, not sort of pissing in your pocket, but, if Todd Payton's sitting there with Dean Young, while they bought you for the things that you do off the field, a large chunk of why they bought you would have been for the things you do off the field. Family man, dedicated, disciplined, professional, all that kind of stuff. And, that goes into it. So Dale Finucane might only play 45 minutes, but from Monday to Friday, that's why the Tigers bought James Tarmow.
Yep.
Because from Monday to Friday, he's leading the way in what we do right, and that's why you get an extra year on your deal. Or,
yep, setting the standards.
Yeah, if you had said 2 years, you probably would have said 2 years, yes, but you get the extra deal because of what you do from Monday to Friday.
Yep. Beauty. All right. Last bit, just quickly before we finish up, Sowie, is...
You told me I had to wrap you up.
No, we're just good mates. He's got my back. Free agency in the NBA, NFL. We obviously run Moving the Chains NFL podcast together. You're a massive Celtics fan in the NBA. They run free agency for guys who might not know at the end of the year. So for us as NRL players, we're allowed to negotiate all year round for the following year. If you're in the NFL or NBA, unless you negotiate a contract with your current team to extend that contract, you can't sign a contract with a rival until after the season's done, when the leagues hit free agency. We obviously love it because it creates the buzz. We're seeing signings here and there. Players talk about where they're going to go. Would it work in the NRL?
Yes.
Would you like to see it?
I hate the system we've got now. I hate it. I would, if you're gonna sign that far out and you still got in preseason, you're still playing with. You're on a hiding to nothing because your first bad game, everyone's off you. So
yep.
I feel like, but the managers drive this. It's not the players. For fans out there that are listening to this, thinking that I'm ringing up, or you're ringing up Todd Payton, going, mate, what's happening? 3 years. You've got nothing to do with it. You're playing footy.
Definitely.
Your manager's employed to take calls and get the best offer for his client.
Yep.
Now, they're always allowed to have conversations, so they leak something to the media and it's a big circus and goes around. And the fan gets caught up in that, thinking that the player's shopping himself around. If they had a 2-week window mid-season for mid-season transfers, you could plan and prepare around that. So, for instance, yourself, okay, the Sharks have decided to move on, you've signed another contract. But from rounds 15 or 13 to 17 that we play State of Origin, that's a transfer window for you to make the move up there if required. If not, then you're going to play in reserve grade, which is you're going to have to do that because you're going there at the end of the year. But that's your part to negotiate contracts for the following year. And if you're a player, I don't know if you want to sign a year out. I signed halfway through the year, and I don't think you want to get to that stage that you're signing a year out, and sometimes people panic and stuff, but it's a weird one, man, because...
I think that something definitely needs to happen. I think through my experience of having signed, elsewhere...
Have you got much lashback?
A little bit. Yeah, I mean, you get good... With anything, you get good and bad.
Yeah, but for a guy that won a premiership for the club, I can't imagine too many people would be up in your grill about it.
Yeah, I've had a lot of supportive messages saying, this is just the business. It's just, unfortunately, this is just the part of the game.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So for me, it was always a chance for me to secure my long-term future for my family. I think when I told my teammates was probably the hardest thing, but just being open and honest, and they all were straight to me and said, well,
players understand.
Players understand. You got to do what you got to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's more like the fans. I guess they don't, fully understand the whole side of the business.
Yeah.
Because it happens.
Fans come up to me all the time, and I've said it before. I did not leave the Dragons, okay? I got offered 1 year. Penrith offered me 4.
Well, there you
do
go.
the math.
Yeah.
You do the math.
Yeah.
So,
and that was similar to me.
I understand it. Yeah.
I had an option for 1 year, or I had a guaranteed 3 years.
Yeah.
And that's just it's just
plus you get to start Cowboy Beer Company up there.
You'd be surprised how many people have said that to me, actually.
I can't imagine, yeah. I still haven't tasted it, actually.
Yeah, I got you a case today. So,
thanks, mate.
Well, see, we will wrap it up there,
Thanks,
mate.
mate.
Thank you so much for coming on today.
Cheers, bro.
I really appreciate it. Guys, please make sure you head on to Spotify, iTunes, and check out the Sweet and Sour podcast. Jamie Soward runs an excellent show. Make sure you subscribe to that too. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Yo!